Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, and drop a comment if you're ready for the darkest, most shocking stories. Because what you're about to hear isn't just tragic, it's unimaginable. The night air in Afton, Oklahoma was unusually cold for early December, and the streets were quiet, save for the hum of a single car passing by. Inside a modest, two-bedroom home on the edge of town, laughter had once echoed through the walls. But tonight, that laughter had been replaced by a scream that would haunt the entire community. 4-year-old Emily Parker was playing with her dolls in the living room, her small feet pattering on the worn carpet, oblivious to the adult world's dangers. In the kitchen, a gun lay on the counter, forgotten, improperly stored, but loaded. Moments later, a single shot rang out, slicing through the night like a cold blade. The sound wasn't just a gunshot, it was the sound of a life forever altered. By the time neighbors called 911, Emily was already unresponsive, her tiny body crumpled on the floor. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but the storm outside had grounded the medical helicopter, leaving only the slow, tense drive to the nearest hospital. Every second felt like an eternity. Detective Laura Benson arrived at the scene within 20 minutes. She had seen tragedies before, but something about Emily's case felt different, more fragile, more cruel. The living room was a chaotic mess. Overturned chairs, a doll with a cracked face, and the unmistakable metallic scent of blood hanging in the air. Benson's eyes scanned the room, noting every detail: the angle of the bullet, the scattered toys, the way the family photos seemed to stare accusingly from the walls. The parents, Mark and Rachel Parker, were inconsolable. Their cries echoed through the small house, punctuated by the detective's calm but insistent questions. No one had seen the gun fall. No one had heard it pick up, yet the evidence was undeniable. A 4-year-old girl had been shot in the chest. As Benson began to piece together the timeline, inconsistencies started to emerge. Mark swore he had left the gun secured in a locked drawer, but a neighbor reported seeing it on the counter earlier that day. Rachel claimed she was upstairs folding laundry, yet fingerprints on the weapon didn't match hers or the father's entirely. Questions raced through Benson's mind. Was it truly an accident, or had someone else been in the house that day? Outside, the small town of Afton was beginning to stir. News spread quickly, and within hours the local school had sent out a notice. Grief counselors would be available for Emily's classmates. The community was shaken to its core. Parents whispering warnings to their children, neighbors staring nervously at each other, trying to understand how something so innocent could turn fatal in an instant. But then, just as the investigation seemed to reach a dead end, Benson's team discovered something chilling in the backyard. A small buried box, half hidden beneath a patch of freshly disturbed soil. Inside, she found a collection of disturbing evidence: handwritten letters, a faded photograph of Emily with a man not known to the family, and a small audio recorder. The recorder clicked on automatically when she picked it up, capturing a voice so faint it sent chills down her spine. "Can't let them find out. If they see this, everything's over," the voice whispered. Benson's heart pounded. The recording wasn't recent. The static suggested it had been buried for months, yet the words were clear. Someone had been hiding something from Emily's parents, something dangerous. Back inside the Parker home, tensions were mounting. Mark and Rachel were questioned repeatedly, their grief now mingled with fear. Every glance, every hesitation, every twitch was being observed. But as Benson pieced together the timeline of the morning, one glaring question emerged. Why would a 4-year-old gain access to a gun that had supposedly been locked away? The answer came in the form of an anonymous tip. A neighbor called, insisting they had seen a figure lurking around the Parker home several nights prior. The witness claimed the person carried a small bag and disappeared into the shadows whenever anyone approached. Benson's team began reviewing security footage from nearby streets. What they found made the detective freeze. A hooded figure, moving with practiced precision, entered the Parker driveway at 2:17 a.m. on the night of the shooting. The figure remained for only minutes, then vanished without a trace. But what set Benson on edge was the way the figure seemed to pause at the back door, the same door that would later lead to the buried box. Someone had tampered with the home long before Emily ever touched the gun. Meanwhile, forensic analysis of the bullet revealed something shocking. The gun had been recently cleaned, but traces of an unfamiliar substance were found inside the barrel. It wasn't blood, not exactly. It was chemical, something used to obscure fingerprints. The realization hit Benson like a punch. This wasn't a simple accident. Someone had prepared the weapon, possibly intending for it to discharge. As the town's whispers turned to outright suspicion, the Parker family became prisoners of their own home. Friends who once visited regularly stopped showing up. Every phone call, every knock at the door made Rachel flinch. And Mark, he started checking locks obsessively, but even that brought no comfort, because the evidence now pointed to a horrifying possibility. The person responsible was still nearby. Late that night, Benson returned to the buried box, determined to uncover its final secrets. Hidden beneath the letters and photos was a small envelope marked with Emily's name. Inside were pages of a diary written by someone obsessed with the child. The words were haunting. "She doesn't know what she means to me. Soon she'll understand. No one will stop this." The detective's stomach twisted. The case wasn't just about a tragic accident. It was about obsession, secrecy, and someone who had been planning this in the shadows for months. Emily's death had been a trigger, not an end. And then, in the final moments of the night, Benson's phone buzzed. The caller ID was blocked. A voice, cold and almost taunting, whispered, "Detective Benson, you're getting too close. Stop now, or the next one won't survive." In that instant, Benson realized the danger was no longer hypothetical. Someone in Afton was watching her, and they knew exactly how to stay one step ahead. The game had just begun. Detective Benson paced the dimly lit office, the diary pages spread across her desk like shards of broken glass. Every word pointed to a sinister figure lurking in plain sight, someone the Parker family had trusted, someone who knew their routines, their fears, their weaknesses. And now that someone had issued a warning. Benson couldn't ignore it. The first breakthrough came when a forensic specialist analyzed the chemical traces inside the barrel. It wasn't just an obscure cleaning agent. It was a rare solvent used to remove traces of DNA from firearms. That meant the gun had been handled by someone meticulous, someone who understood the science of hiding evidence. Benson realized with a sinking feeling that Emily's death had been orchestrated. Suspicion began to swirl around the household staff, a babysitter who had been working on and off, a delivery driver who knew the family's schedule, and even a close relative who had been overly protective of Emily. Each alibi was examined, each statement cross-referenced, but nothing fit, until a small clue emerged from the recorder buried in the backyard. The voice had been altered, but spectral analysis revealed a pattern. It matched the pitch and timbre of someone in the Parker household. Shockingly, it wasn't a stranger. It was someone Emily had seen every day, someone she trusted. Benson confronted Rachel first. Tearfully, Rachel denied any involvement, but her phone records told a different story. Weeks before the incident, multiple calls were made to an untraceable number late at night. The recipient? The same mysterious figure captured on the security footage. The pieces began to fall into place. Rachel had been manipulated, lured into a dangerous scheme she didn't fully understand. The letters, the recordings, even the buried box,
They weren't just messages to her. They were instructions, coercing her into actions that culminated in a tragedy she never intended. Mark, oblivious to the manipulations, had trusted his wife's judgment implicitly, but the truth was far more twisted than grief-stricken parents could imagine. Emily's death had been a tragic accident, one rooted in deception, obsession, and calculated interference from a shadowy figure intent on controlling the Parker household. Late that night, Benson returned to the backyard. The soil still looked freshly disturbed. She dug cautiously, and her gloved hands brushed against something metallic, a small, hidden compartment. Inside were detailed plans, maps of the Parker home, notes on Emily's routines, and surveillance logs spanning months. Whoever had orchestrated this had been meticulous, patient, and terrifyingly close. Then a noise behind her made her freeze. A figure emerged from the darkness, hooded, silent. Benson reached for her sidearm, but the intruder spoke before she could act. "You were never supposed to find this. Some things are meant to stay buried." The figure bolted, vanishing into the night. But Benson had what she needed, enough evidence to track the person down, to expose the manipulation that had led to the accidental shooting. Weeks later, the investigation concluded. The orchestrator was revealed, a former family friend, jealous of Mark and Rachel's life, obsessed with control, and willing to exploit their trust to achieve a twisted goal. Charges were filed, and justice, while incomplete, began to take shape. Yet the haunting truth remained. Emily's life had been stolen in a way that no court could undo, and the town of Afton, once quiet and serene, would never look at its streets the same way again. Even now, months later, when neighbors glance at the Parker house, they swear they see a shadow at the window, a silent reminder that obsession can hide behind the most familiar faces. They thought the tragedy had ended, but the echoes of Emily's laughter and the secrets that led to her death lingered, haunting every corner of the town. If this story shook you, remember, sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones closest to home.